Well, last night was Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals in the NHL, where the Tampa Bay Lightning won in overtime. Anthony Cirelli was the hero for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Joining me today to break down this series and the upcoming Stanley Cup Final series is Eric Bay. Eric, thanks for joining me.
For sure, we finally reached the end of the road, so pretty exciting time.
Yeah, wasn't too sure, especially with the way some of these sports leagues were running, if we would make it this far, but thankfully we have gotten here. I guess just to start off, Eric, what did you see from that Game 6 from both the New York Islanders and the Tampa Bay Lightning?
Yeah, and I think this game was even maybe a little bit more wide open than even Game 5, which the Islanders actually ended up winning. And I think when you look at the gameplay itself, the Islanders had a lot more chances. It was almost a little more run and gun for that game, and the team had a little bit better going for them momentum-wise, I would say, especially because Tampa had some pretty big lapses. But you look at both games, it was pretty much the same ending when you look at a high sticking penalty late in the third period, which leads to a 4-minute power play for Tampa. The only difference is Tampa obviously able to capitalize this time and win, and I think that was almost the inevitable. I know you're going to speak on this here in a bit, but a lot of shots for Tampa, and even though they did give up a lot of those chances, they still held, most of the play in the Islanders' end.
Yeah, one key that we had talked about heading into this game, and if there was possibly going to be a Game 7, was that Varlamov had to stand on his head for the Islanders. And, I mean, he played his heart out, having 46 saves, but obviously just not enough, letting that one slide through in OT. Now, Eric, I guess let's just look ahead now to the Stanley Cup Finals. The Dallas Stars, who won their series against the Vegas Golden Knights in 5 games, will take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. I guess just to start off, who do you like in this series?
I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think it has to be Tampa Bay. We've seen what they've done throughout the entire season, and then even again into the playoffs here, obviously winning 2 series in 5 games, this one in 6, and I would say it wasn't overly close. I mean, again, I know the Islanders did keep it close, but you look at those shot totals, the Tampa Bay Lightning really held it into the Islanders' end. So I think, again, at this point, Tampa Bay has to be the favorite. You look at what they have up front. Andrei Vasilevskiy and net has been playing amazing. Their defense has been stellar, but you can't count out the Dallas Stars. They've obviously picked it up here in the last couple of rounds, took on and beat a very good Vegas Golden Knights team. So this should be interesting, and I think it might be, fairly high scoring, actually.
Yeah, for me, it's a tough one. When you look at it on paper, it seems like it's Tampa Bay's series through and through. They have the goaltending in Vasilevskiy, who I think is better than Anton Khudobin for the Dallas Stars. You look at their defense, just all around, they have a deeper D-core. Plus, you have Victor Hedman, who, as of late, could be a Norris candidate each and every year that he plays. And then up front, you got Nikita Kucherov and Brayden Point, who are the 2 leading scorers in the playoffs. But saying all of that, I just have a feeling that the Dallas Stars will make it interesting. And the main key for me is the size that they have up front. They have 10 different forwards who are at least 6 feet tall and over 200 pounds. On the Tampa Bay Lightning, only 2 forwards fit that category. So I think in a 7-game series, that could be something where Dallas really starts to turn it on. If they were to win, I would have Dallas winning in maybe a Game 6 or a 7 after really wearing down the Tampa Bay Lightning forwards as well. If we just look at the stats, Miro Heiskanen is 3rd in this series in points, obviously behind Nikita Kucherov and behind Brayden Point. But just the depth of the Dallas Stars is what kind of blows my mind. Jamie Benz really turned it on, getting 5 points in 5 games in the last series, as well as John Klingberg. He's low-key put up 13 assists, which is some of the most for the NHL playoffs, and they're just getting scoring by committee, and that's leaving out one of, if not their best player in Tyler Seguin. If they do want to win, he's obviously got to pick up their game. Eric, just taking a look for you, what players do you think could be catalyst players in this finals?
I think you just brought him up, Tyler Seguin. He's got to be better. He hasn't played overly well, I would say, throughout this entire playoffs, and they really need him to pick it up. Jamie Benn as well. He hadn't played very well earlier, but we've seen him come on, as you mentioned there in that last series. So that's what the Dallas Stars are going to need from Tyler Seguin. And for me, it's a guy you talked about even in this last round, and that's Brayden Point. It's going to be interesting, not from his style of play and standard of play, but how healthy he can be and if he can stay healthy, because he did miss 2 of those games in the last series. And you mentioned it, obviously obviously a big team in Dallas. And I would say that even if Tampa isn't, necessarily the biggest team, they're no pushovers either anymore. They got tougher after last year's playoff upset. But for me, I think Braden Point has to stay healthy if these guys are going to, kind of run away with this, if people kind of expect that.
The New York Islanders did win 2 games with Braden Point out of the lineup, so that is a very good point. Eric, it's always a pleasure getting to chat with you.
For sure.